Backstage.
Run us through the process, Brian, of your typical barge show. You get up at what time, and take us from there.
Okay. The time we get there sort of depends on how complex the show is. Most of the time we'll be there like 8 in the morning. So the first thing we'll do is if the mortar racks and gear is not already on the barge, we'll offload it from the trucks, whatever. The next thing we do is we take a look at the show list. And we'll have an idea. It'll have the layout of the show. So, for example, we'll know that we're going to put a bunch of 6-inch racks over here, and they have to be angled out at a 10 degree or 15 degree, whatever. And so you basically get all of your racks in the general area where you want them to be. Then you start mounting them depending on how they're supported, either with boards or whatever, get them the right angles.
Right.
So once you get all of your mortars laid out where you want them, then you're looking at the list and you start pulling your shells, and you put your shells where they're supposed to be. Every shell.
Where would that be stored?
The shells will usually be brought out at the same day, or if it's a large enough show, we'll have a truck deliver them separately, have a transport deliver them separately. So you have to, again, offload everything, get it there.
So you get it in you'd have a little boat going back and forth kind of thing, or would the barge be?
For the smaller shows, the barge is moored at that point. It's only for Celebration of Light where the barges are actually taken out ahead of time and anchored. For the regular shows like Canada Day or whatever, we will be taken out at the appropriate point at high tide. And towed out for the show. Okay. So we'll be stuck on the barges for a while, a few hours at night, but we'll still have access to everything. So you usually send somebody out for lunch or what have you.
Right.
So we'll put all the get the racks secured and nailed together and everything. Have that ready to go. Start putting out the shells. You might, depending on how many people you have on the crew, you might dedicate one person to just taking the modules for the firing system and putting them out in the area, running the cables, making sure that the modules are addressed to the proper channel. Your shells usually are pre-labeled in terms of what lines they go to. I've worked on a couple of shows where they weren't, which at that point you're going through the list going, okay, this is a super crackling comet, okay, that goes, and trying to sort that out. So once you get the shells figured out where you want them to be, again, depending on the number of crew you have, you may have all of the shells across the entire barge getting dropped at once, or you may say, okay, we've got it, it's broken into like 3 or 5 posts. They're generally referred to as posts.
Right.
So it's like, we're going to work on post 1, we're going to get that dropped, we're going to get that wired, get that done, covered up, and then move to post 2, post 3.
Right.
Again, there's some flexibility on it depending on the crew that you have.
Now, do you have like a script?
Yes, we will have the script. The script will give you the line number. It will give you the size of the shell. Give you the description, and if the shells aren't labeled, that is invaluable. If the shells are labeled, you may have to do a sanity check once or twice. But generally, what you'll do is you say, okay, well, this is these are post 1, and they're usually there's a way that they will label them. So it might be, for example, like be 1-12-1, and the first one means it's post 1, and the second thing, it goes into module 12, and then the last number is it goes into line 1. So you'd have 112-1, 112-2, 112-3, whatever. Something, do it a little bit differently. So you get the shells put in the mortars, then you go through and put the electric match in to electrically fire them. You do not put the E-match in the shells before they're in the tubes.
Okay.
Just standard safety rule. Put those in, get that there. If the wire for the E-match is long enough that you don't have to attach extra wire to extend it, hooray, you're ahead of the game. If you have to run extender wire, then you would be attaching that. And
this is all low current.
Yeah, it's all low current.
Low current, it's
voltage. They'll go like 1.5 volts.
Right.
You can fire an E-match off of a AA battery. But, we are pumping a little bit more current on because you do have a bit more wire to go through.
Right.
So you get everything hooked up, you get everything hooked into your modules. Once you assume that you don't have any extra shells left over that you don't know what to do, if you have extra tube, like if like a 3-inch rack usually has 10 tubes in it, when you're loading everything up, you will usually know that that tube is supposed to be empty. But if it's, wait a minute, that's supposed to be a chain of 10. Okay, what did we do? Did we put it somewhere we shouldn't have? So there's a little bit
you're
of
double
troubleshooting.
checking.
Oh yeah, you're double checking all the time.
Quickly, a rack. You're talking about a bunch of shells that are mounted and they're all at the same angle, kind of thing.
Well, the rack is basically a bunch of tubes in a row with a frame around it, and depending on the manufacturer, the frame may be metal, the frame may be wood. So it's basically sort of a square like this with all of your little tubes in it, and you put this, and then you may tilt it for the angle depending on what you do.
Right.
And you never place it facing the audience where if it falls over, it would shoot toward the audience. Always perpendicular. Safety again.
Right. And this must be fairly substantial. It's got some mass.
Yeah, mortars and tubes are designed to be not totally indestructible, but they have to be designed that if a shell, the way they're tested is you put a shell in upside down, so that instead of blowing out, it actually would shoot down, and then it explodes in the tube. You have to be reasonably certain that if heaven forbid that happens, that when something explodes in that tube, it doesn't blow out the tubes next to it.
Right.
So so that one shell screwing up doesn't necessarily blow out your entire rack.
Right.
Because
that
if
would
it
be
does,
bad.
that would be very bad. So if it does, you might have a tube that falls over this way or a tube that falls over that way, and then things are not. It's like they're not going in the wire. They're not going in the air.
That's a real good show.
I have a picture of myself holding a 3-inch tube that the shell went off in it. And it's still intact, but you could see where it was split open in multiple spots, and it's you look at that and you think that's part of why we put them in sand when we have sand. So we get everything loaded, we get it wired, we get everything put in the module. Then we make sure we have all of the wires running to the modules. Some firing systems, like the one I brought today to show you, are a wireless system, which means that your control is just using radio frequency.
Right.
Others times you will have everything running with a wire back to a main control panel.
Right.
Once you get all of that set up, we clear everybody off the field and we do a continuity check. And the continuity check gives two purposes. It allows you to make sure that you've got everything that your show list says you're supposed to have.
Right.
And it also allows you to verify that everything is in good working order.
So somebody's walking around.
No, this it. They're not on there. You're doing this off your control panel.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you're pressing a button to do, or however your system is designed to do the continuity check, and you'll see a bunch of lights come up. So if I have, say I have a control panel that goes up to 50 cues.
Right.
And I'm saying, okay, I want to check that post, and I press the test button, and say only the first 48 light up. Okay, go back to the shot list. It says, in post 1, I'm only supposed to have 48 cues, bonus, or
Right.
golden. If you look at it, it says, no, I'm supposed to have something in 49. Okay, what's wrong? It could be somebody forgot to put the wires for the electric match in the clips. It could be they pushed it in too far and the clip is actually hitting the insulation.
Right.
It could be that it's a bad electric match. So there are a number of things. So you basically keep doing your test until you have everything is showing and everything is green in this.
Right.
Then it's kind of a contradictory feeling, because on the one hand, if everything is done well and you get it all done, and then you have a few hours before your show, you're sitting there bored out of your tree. On the other hand, would you rather be bored out of your tree, or would you rather be running around like a chicken with your head cut off trying to patch things up? I've had it both ways.
Yeah.
When they filmed me for the reality show, we actually had a bad patch box that we had to swap out. So here I am. I've got a headlamp on. I've got a flashlight in my mouth. We're moving the cables over. The line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. I've got a camera over my shoulder, and I'm mic'd. I've been mic'd for 2 days, so I've been, shall I say, I have not been able to express myself to the fullest because I've been wearing a microphone for 2 days, and I really did not need a camera over me. And this was within like the last hour, 45 minutes before the show. So it can be rather stressful. Yeah. But if I have to take being bored out of my tree versus being stressed out, I'll take the being bored out of my tree. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So, yeah, so you say you get everything done. You basically say, okay, we have a show. We're ready to go. If the barge is still moored, then you verify, okay, when are they going to tow us out? Okay, we're not going out for 2 hours. Great. You guys got some time to get some dinner. Somebody, of course, always stays on the barge. Well, if it's nice if you have that. The one place we've been getting the barges from a few times, they have one of those nice heavy duty espresso machines with, it's totally electronics.
Oh, yeah?
You say like, I want a large mocha, and it runs the whole thing for you. And yeah, we love that place.
I bet you do. I bet you do. Now, in terms of firing, it's ready to go. The music's getting ready to go. What are the different ways of firing a show?
Okay. Well, the old-fashioned way, hand firing, almost never done these days. The last time I hand fired a show was probably about 7 or 8 years ago on a New Year's Eve. I used to do shows for one of the local yacht clubs up in Indian Arm at their outstation. It was a really small show. It was no more than 40 shells. I was firing them one at a time. Like, I was specifically told, don't try to get fancy and combine things. Just, let one go up, wait till it fades, do the next. And so for that, it's really easy to have a torch or a flare on the end of a stick. You're not going right up.
So
with
basically,
not going to. But one
analogous
two.
to a board with nails in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of thing.
You have that. You then have the electrical firing systems, and I've used the manual system where you're listening to a cue over the speakers where they're saying stand by for line 1, 3, 2, 1, bop, stand by for line 2, 3, 2, 1, and doing that. Right. Then you have the pre-programmed computerized systems, which if you want to use them manually, you certainly can, or you preload a script.
Is it DMX?
Some of them use DMX, yeah. The system that I'm using, for example, the Cobra, is, say, it's a totally wireless system. You have the field modules that you put out, and they communicate with the remote control. I can still load scripts into that and say, basically, when I press this button, I want this particular script to run, and it will do all of that.
Right.
So depending on if the system that you have supports time code, then you have it hooked in with your sound system and everybody's on time code and you're synced, and you just press the button and you're doing good.